Welcome everyone to a Pennant information session. Today we are running a fast snapshot series demonstration of the R4i BREX Validator version 2.0. My name is Tammy Holter. I am the Managing Director of Pennant Australasia region and I will be your host today. And with me is Ms. Rita Nye, our Senior Consultant, who is going to present the new BREX Validator. Welcome, Rita.
Thank you, Tammy. Welcome to you too.
So what do you have for us today, Rita?
Okay, so what I wanted to do was give an introduction to the new BREX Validator. So we've had our BREX Validator out for a while now, since a little bit before the R4i writer was released. And it's been a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every data module you could test, so for every BREX you could test one data module. So we've continued to maintain that, but I thought it was beneficial for us to actually show some of the extra new features that we've got with the new validator. So what we've done with this is we've now set it up so that we can do some batch processing as well. So instead of just doing a 1-to-1, we can actually point to a whole folder and process a bundle of files instead, which of course means that we've also introduced some reporting. So again, it goes through this process of giving us some report information, which means we can do either a full report or just a failed report, depending on what we want to do. And with this, we thought, well, we may as well just also not just do a BREX validation, but let's just actually verify that the document is actually valid to the schema as well. So it's just a refresh, an update, brand new features that we've put into it. So that's literally what I want to be able to go and show inside our BREX Validator. So if I come into my BREX Validator, and I've got it here running, if it'll bring up...
Well, you're bringing that up too, Rita.
Yep.
So I guess the thing to note is previously the version 1 of the BREX Validator was a free tool. What's the situation now with this version 2.0? Because it's in batch mode, not just validating one single data module at a time.
Yep, so we've effectively come up with, we've got the R4i BREX Validator, which if you're a customer, you can jump up to the support portal and you'll be able to download it. It'll be up on the portal very shortly. Mm-hmm. Without licensing, it'll continue to perform exactly the same as what it was, which is a 1-to-1 ratio. What you can do is you can actually purchase like credits for it. So you can see here that I've got 500 credits, so I've just topped myself up so that I've actually got some files. And what it does is you can purchase how many credits you want, and we've got a whole structure for that. So if anybody's interested, they can certainly connect with us for that, just at sales@absolutedata.com.
Yep.
But what it does is by changing over to the BREX Validator Professional version, it means that we get the batching capabilities. So I can still do 1-to-1 ratio of validation if I want to, but instead I've now got the option to do some validation at a batch of files instead. So that's the big difference between version 1.0 and 2.0 of the BREX Validator, is we do get this extra batch capability.
And of course, as you said, we've added into the layer as well. Not only do we do BREX validation, we're doing layered BREX. So if it is a BREX that references another BREX, you have the ability to do the appropriate layered BREX check. And as you've said, schema validation, if you don't want to do it, but hey, turn it on, it will make sure your document's actually valid to the schema first before it even moves on to the BREX validation, which is kind of handy, particularly if you're taking delivery of a set of data modules. You can pump them through and make sure they're valid to the schema, make sure they're valid to the BREX, and get them in that batch mode before you start importing them into your CSTB.
Absolutely.
Now, one other item to Rita to note is the schema validation, the layered BREX validation. This is everything that we've already got in our R4i writer tool, correct?
Correct, yes. So you cannot, well, you can author a data module inside R4i Writer, and whilst you're authoring, it can be structurally invalid to the schema. But for you to be able to add it into the CSTB, it's got to be valid to the schema. You cannot add in invalid documents to the CSTB. and you
So
can't
we're checking that inside Writer. Yep.
We're doing that inside Writer. And of course, we can do our BREX check inside Writer as well, and that can be a layered BREX. So we've been supporting that for really from day one. We haven't made any major changes there. But what we've done with this tool is this is really designed for where you're taking receipt of data from an OEM or a supplier, and you want to verify that that data is compliant to the BREX that you're working with. So even before you get to the point of adding the data inside the CSDB, because the last thing you want to do is take receipt of the data, pour it straight into the CSDB, and then find that the content should have been rejected even before that because it's not compliant to your business rules.
Yes, and I guess the other scenario is that we have some customers who, of course, have used the legacy products like Arbortext or FrameMaker, and we have the workspace tool which allows them to have that interaction into the CSDB, and we offer additional capability in workspace, but the BREX check is not one of those things that we have inside the workspace layer, and of course Arbortext and FrameMaker don't natively do a validation against a layered BREX. So we, if we've got some customers that also have the other tools in play, they can still do their authoring in the other tool, then they can run it through without having to pay anything, use the single BREX check to check that data module they've just been working on with the free version, and then they can check that data module into the CSDB as well. So the utility is still able to be used as a single standalone, I want to check this data module I've just authored, and then place it into the CSDB. But it's, if you want to do that batch checking of hundreds of files or thousands of files, then you can just activate the license key to get that capability.
Correct.
Okay,
and
so
Yep. So what you'll see is the difference is that most of this toolbar will be hidden if you don't have credits. And
yes.
You'll see here I've got a file or a folder. So if you're running in the standalone base system, you'll only have the option to select a file. So that's the big difference from the interface perspective. But all we've got is here, obviously, you know, you've got the license manager. So if you purchase credits, you can then populate it with your licenses, and it will then give you your credits down the bottom. And all I've done is I've selected my location, so I've just created a folder and I've put some files into that folder so that I can test them. And I thought, since I don't want to test with the standard bike BREX, I'm going to use the civil aviation BREX just to see what happens with it. Anything could happen. I might end up with every single one failing, but okay. And with that, you can see here I've also turned on schema validation. So if I have it set to the left, I'm not going to do schema validation, but if I have it turned to the right, I'm going to do schema validation. It's a choice. You know, realistically, if you're taking receipt of content, it should be valid to the schema, but
obviously.
We've seen situations where that's not the case. So
or people don't want to for some reason. So and they want to let it pass through and just do the BREX check. So it's an option.
And all we've got to do, it's a really hard process here, Tam. It's so hard. You've just got to hit on run validation. And what that does,
away we go.
It's now validating that document. And as I said, I'm fully expecting most of this to fail, although I'm getting some passes, so that's a nice thing. Okay, so we can see there that 7 out of the 13 passed the validation, and we're even generous. We're giving you a percentage of past validation.
Okay, we just got past 50. Okay, good start.
Okay, so if I acknowledge that, we can see the green ticks, which ones have passed. So we do get a visual indicator first of all. And also, if we click onto, we've got the warning ones. If we click onto the plus beside it, it'll actually tell you what's wrong. And we can actually click onto the drop down and it'll give you the details. What is the BRDP and what has failed? So that again gives us the information. So it gives us a visual detail about what is right or wrong, but obviously with this, we then want to be able to have some way of being able to manage this a little bit easier than having to click onto each line and see the content. So that's where our validation reports then come into play. So up here on our validation reports, we've then got either failed or full validation.
Yep.
And this would be a choice. So if you want, if as a recipient, as the customer taking receipt of this content, you might want to send back a full validation report that allows the customer to, or the OEM to see, yep, look, we've done a validation and this is our results. Or we just might want to have a failed validation report. It's really a choice as to which one we do, but I'll just do the failed one. And what this does is it then generates that report and it gives us our validation report here. So what it does is it gives us our data module code and it gives us into a written format exactly what we've done. What's the problem?
Lots of detail.
Lots of detail. So it's the same information that we've got in the interface. It's just that now we're seeing it in a report format so that we can actually go through and we can scroll down to see each instance, so we can literally do this. And obviously with this, we then want to be able to export the document, so we can export it to a range of different formats, or we can print it or email it, or we can print it, depending on what we want to do. So it gives us that ability to be able to detail the information, get it into a format that's going to be helpful for whomever we're issuing this report. And so we can then say, okay, I wanted it as a PDF or I want it as a HTML or whatever I want. I can choose that.
Yeah, and CSV files are pretty popular too, aren't they, for these sorts of things?
Excel spreadsheets. Yeah. Anything and everything that we want to do with it. But it means that it gives us a visual indicator, and you can see here the programs have been nice and generous so that we can identify each row. They've put a little bit of shading on it just to help us identifying each row. But yeah, it's as hard as that. So it's a really simple little interface. Once we've generated the report, we can then just close this and we're back to our interface.
Yep, and we could bundle the report with the documents and send them back, right? So, and I guess, like you said, you can either do the full report, I know some people indicate when they're doing BREX checks from suppliers, they'll send all valid and all failed back with a full report, and other people just send back the ones that have been, rejected. So, again, it just depends on, your process and how you're working with your team and your suppliers. So, excellent.
Absolutely. And then from the back end side of it, any of the files that have been rejected, they actually get put into an invalid files folder. So you can just come in and you'll then just have all the summary of all the files that have failed that particular validation.
Yeah, yeah.
So you don't have to go hunting through all of the files that take receipt of. You can literally just go to the invalid files section and you'll have all the data modules there.
And so the ones sitting at the higher level, just at the BREX validation folder level, are the ones that, of course, have passed.
Correct.
And then we, like you said, we've got the subfolder for the invalid, which is really handy. So yeah, we could throw the report into that folder right there and zip it up and send it back to them. So
absolutely. So it's a nice, simple way. So as I said, it's a great little tool. It's really helpful from that perspective, and I can see lots of end customers wanting to be able to utilise this. Obviously, if we wanted to, we can manipulate it by using our grid panel at the top, but it's not a necessary requirement. It's nice and simple. So, and we're doing that. So with that, because I've done the civil aviation, it is that layered BREX structure. So we are doing a full layered BREX. So we don't need to have the files stored inside the CSDB at all.
So I noticed there, Rita, you're actually pointing to your folder where you've got the BREX. So if there is a layer BREX, we have to have all those BREX files sitting in your folder that you've pointed to, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So
excellent.
we're not doing a connection into the CSDB.
Yep.
I don't know.
It allows you to work with it outside. Yep. So you basically need to make sure that if you've got a single BREX or layered BREX, you need to have all those BREX components sitting in your BREX module folder ready for the validation.
Correct. And with that, if you do know that the BREX modules have been updated that are stored inside the CSDB, obviously you'd have to do an uncontrolled copy and put them into here. And that would then give us the latest information, so you'd then be able to rerun that BREX every time.
Yeah, and I mean it's a sort of QA team leader role anyway, isn't it? Taking delivery of all the suppliers' BREX before they're stored into a CSTV. So it wouldn't be an unusual thing to have the licensed version of this on that type of user's desktop. So
absolutely,
excellent.
And you can see it's counted down, so it's taken out the charge for the records that we processed.
Fantastic. Excellent. Okay.
So it's a pretty simple, easy little tool, but thought that customers might find it beneficial to see.
Yes, certainly the BREX mode and in particular the reporting as well has been an enhancement request that people have wanted. And for the free utility, you're still getting all of the same capability, but just a single file at a time. And if you want to do it in batch, then you can just license to whatever volume you want. So Rita and my email addresses are up there on the screen. If you need to connect with us for any other questions, please do so. Otherwise, we hope you enjoy the new BREX Validator version 2.0 as much as we do. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.